Hello, my name is Malak, and today I'll be presenting the visitor design pattern for CIS 476. So the purpose of the visitor design pattern is to define a new operation without introducing the modifications to an existing object structure. So imagine that we have a composite object which consists of components. The object structure is fixed, so we either can't change or we don't have a plan to add new types of elements to the structure. So the visitor design pattern is mainly used when a behavior makes sense only in some classes of a class hierarchy, but not others. So you can extract this behavior into separate visitor class and implement only those visiting methods that accept objects of relevant classes, which leave the rest empty. So with that being said, an advantage is that new operations are easy to add without changing element classes. Different concrete elements don't have to implement their part of a particular algorithm. Now to speak about the disadvantages, the node object must know how to accept the visitor, and they'll eventually call a method on the visitor that is appropriate to the type of node. So this is an example shown it below, and therefore, a consequence of this pattern is that the visitor needs to know about the node types it might encounter. So for my program example, I chose to do a program about taxes, and different items have different tax rates. So for example, gas tax is 27%, food tax is 0%, and clothing tax is 6% in Michigan. So creating a traditional program would require the classes to constantly change to get the tax rate. So this is my structure UML class diagram. So in the client, I will be calling the visitor and I will pass the price of the different objects. And then in tax visitor, the visit method will see which type of object was passed and it'll perform a tax calculation and send it back as a double. And over here, I have the different objects that we have. So we have gas, food, and clothing. So this allows us to create completely different ways of taxing different objects, as well as very easily implementing new ways of taxing just by implementing the visitor interface. So now I'm going to go over my code that I created. So to start off, I have the tax visitor.java file, and this class is a concrete visitor class. So the constructor is created so that each item is sent to the correct version of visit, which is required by the visitor interface. And over here, these methods, each one calculates the total price based on the item being taxed. So for example, this is a gas item, so it'd be taxed with 27%. This is a food item, 0%. And then if it was a clothing item, it would be 6%. Next, we have the visitor.java and visitable.java files. And visitor.java is created to automatically use the right code based on the object that's sent. And visitable.java allows the visitor to pass the object, so the right operations occur on the right type of object. Next, we have our three files for gas, food, and clothing. So these classes set the price equal to the item, and then they have a get method, which returns the price. And lastly, they have an accept method, which calls the visitor interface. Next, we have our client. So in the client, we're creating three objects. First, we have premium, which is of type gas, and that costs $3.57. Then we have bread, which is of type food, and that's $3.25. And then we have shirt, which is of type clothing, and that costs $15.99. And then we also, above here, we created a tax visitor object called tax calc. So this will be used to calculate tax. And then to see the output, we're printing out the price of premium gas with tax calculated. Then we're printing bread with tax calculated, and we're printing shirt with tax calculated. So if we look at the output, we can see that gas item price with tax is $4.53. And then the food item price with tax is $3.25 because food doesn't have a tax. And then the clothing item with tax is $16.95. So these are the sources I used for this project. And thank you for watching my presentation.